So, Joel, I'll start with you. Why do the Democrats have a problem with President Trump and his administration wanting to repeal Obamacare or their efforts to do so?
Well, Arthel, it's very straightforward. If this lawsuit is successful in court and the Affordable Care Act is terminated, Americans will die, and there will be blood on the hands of the Trump administration for doing this, because the Trump administration will have had zero replacement to protect these Americans. We're talking about 20 million Americans being kicked off of health care. We're talking about a termination of protections for pre-existing conditions, an issue that Democrats used effectively in the 2018 midterms, where Americans overwhelmingly expressed support when they were voting on health care for the Democrats.
So Joel, do you think
this is a high ground here?
Joel, okay, this is the high ground here. Do you think, Joel, the Democrats would be willing to sit down with, revisit this with President Trump and maybe come up with something that would work for both sides politically and for the people, most of all?
Well, one can always improve and build on the current healthcare system as we have it, but you don't need to throw it out and then restart it. Speaker Pelosi is already talking about new legislation. Leader McConnell has not yet introduced anything, but where's the bill? A decade of discussion. The Republicans need to put a bill forward, and let's have the legislative process work it out. Absolutely. But you don't need to throw it all out when there's nothing to replace it. Democrats do not want to have Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, repealed. We don't want to have it thrown out in courts. We don't want to throw our health care system into chaos. We want it to be improved as it should be, but the way it currently exists is protecting Americans' health better than it was before. And if there are suggestions to improve it, absolutely. 20 million people more on health care is not an improvement.
What is the Democrats' political, and frankly, Joel, their campaign counter this? Because they can't just keep saying, well, we need to fix Obamacare. How are they planning to do it, specifically where the folks can understand what it is that they're proposing?
Yeah, so primarily, Arthel, costs were skyrocketing prior to the Affordable Care Act. The intent of the Affordable Care Act, which was based upon Mitt Romney's plan in Massachusetts, a Republican plan, was to stabilize that cost increase and get everybody under the umbrella of insurance. And that's where Democrats are going. But you're right. There is a vigorous debate right now inside the Democratic Party about how to go further, expand Medicaid further, get more people onto government coverage that could potentially lower costs even further, because this is not a perfect system. But what I'm trying to emphasize here critically is that we do not want to throw people off of health care to somehow improve their health care. That is not how you do this, and we need to see actual legislation proposed by the president rather than a lawsuit about just getting rid of it.
Okay, Joel, your last 10 seconds.
Thank you. No, and I agree with that, but the Republicans had control for 2 years in Congress, made no plans, a decade of slogans. They still have no real legitimate plan that can work.
All right, we'll see who has the better plan for the people. Joel Rubin, Beverly Hallberg, thank you to both of you.